What's up? My name is Sam, and today we're rebuilding a Jones Road landing page which they use in a lot of their social advertising. So let's jump into Instant and follow along as I build this page from scratch without code and publish to Shopify. So let's get started. Here we are in the Instant Builder, and let's get started with building the navigation. So we drag in our base row, and within this base row we drag in the logo, the Jones Road logo from within the asset panel. As you can see, it snaps to the outer edge of the canvas, so let's create some inside spacing, 10 to the top and bottom and 60 to the left and right. In addition, this logo is quite big, so let's change the width from 500 to 300. This already looks better, and align this logo in the center. Then let's also drag in a button, this one right here. As you can see, they're now stacked underneath each other. So let's select the main row, and then we change the direction from vertical to horizontal, so they're next to each other. Then distribute with this setting and align from the center. Then we delete the minimum height of 200 pixels, which is on this main row. And then let's delete this plus icon and change the text to Shop Now. Then we select the right font, which is Roboto Mono. And then we change the inside spacing of this button. So it's a bit bigger. So we change this to 16 and the left and right to 24. And also this button currently has these nice and round corners, which is looking great, but I want them a little bit less round. So let's change the radius from 8 to 4. And there we have it for the navigation. Next up, let's build the hero. So we drag in our row. Then within this row, we drag in two different columns. Column on the left, I want to fill with a image. So I'm going to select this row, then go to fill, click on image, and select the right image, which is this one right here called hero. Then I'm going to make this image a fixed height of 400 pixels, so we can clearly see what this image is about. Then on the left, I'm going to drag in a text element, a header to be specific, and then let's change it to the correct text, which is 5 reasons you won't regret buying What the Foundation. I have created a bunch of text styles. If we go to styles, you can see them right here, the headline and the body, which will automatically make sure that this text is displayed in the right font. So let's select headline, and there we have it. And now let's make this a little bit less big, change it to 32 pixels. Then I'm also going to drag in another row, and within this row I want to have the star icons and a text element. So we drag in a row underneath. Then within this row I'm going to drag in a image, which is this image right here. Also going to make this way smaller. Let's change this to fit. There we have it. And then next to it, I'm going to add some text. So I need to have a text element, which is this one right here. Again, the elements are placed underneath each other. So let's select this row and then change the direction from vertical to horizontal. It's next to each other. Let's also delete the minimum height. There we have it. We zoom in a little bit and make sure we add the right text, which is over 11,000 5-star reviews. Then we select the right style, which is the body text style. Now let's align this from the middle and then to the center. The same for this text element. Let's align it to the center. There we have it. Next up, I want both of these elements to be in the middle as well. So we change the distribute setting of this row on the right to the center. We delete the fill color, and this is already starting to look really good. Then for this entire row, I also want to add some inside spacing to create consistency with the navigation. So on the navigation, we have 60 pixels worth of inside spacing to the left and right. And I'm also going to add this to the row underneath. So we create some inside spacing and we add 60. The only thing that I want to change right now is that I do want the image to snap to the outer edge on the canvas on the left. So I'm going to open up these inside spacing settings and delete the inside spacing on the left from 60 to 0. And there we have it. The hero is complete. Next up, we're going to build the first part of the listicle, which is the first reason, and then we can duplicate this a couple of times and fill in the correct content. So again, we drag in a row. There we have it. Then within this row, we drag in 2 different columns. Again, let's add some inside spacing to the main row, which is 60 to the left and right and 60 to the top and bottom. There we have it. Next up, I also want to create a bit more space between these individual rows right here. So to accomplish this, I select the layer that contains these 2 rows. Then we go down to gap and I change the gap from 32 to 64. And as you can see, there's now more space between these 2 individual rows. On the left, we will add a picture, and on the right, we will have some text elements. So let's start with adding the picture. Go down to the fill color, change this to the image, and then we select the reason 1 image. This doesn't look good just yet, but wait until we customize this row on the right. So first of all, we need a text element, which is the number 1, which will be the first reason. So let's type in 1, and then we select the right style, which is the headline style. Let's make sure this is actually bold. There we have it. Then underneath, we drag in another text element, and this should say it's your skin on a great skin day every day. There we have it. Let's also select the correct style, which is more like a headline. Then we select the font. We make this 24 pixels large. There we have it. Next up, we need to add another text element. So let's select the paragraph text element, drag it underneath, copy and paste in the correct text. There we have it. And then select the correct style, which is right here. Body, there we have it. And then underneath, we need to drag in a row, another row, and then we add some elements within that row. So let's do that. We drag in a row underneath this paragraph. Well, this is not underneath, so let's quickly change that. There we have it. And then within this row, we first of all select the right fill color, which is this brand color right here. Then within this row, we drag in another text element, which is this one right here. And then I want to create a bit of space between the outer edge of this row and then where the content starts. And we do that with inside spacing. So let's create 20 pixels worth of inside spacing to the top and bottom and 20 to the left and right. Then this should say so silky. So let's copy and paste the correct text. Then we change the style to the headline, and then we make the font way smaller, 20, and also make sure it's bold. Next up, we drag in a row underneath, and we can actually copy this row right here from the header, the row, and we paste it within this row. There it is. We need to make sure it's set to the left. So we do that with the distribute setting, and we fill in the correct text, which is Laurie G. There we have it. And this can actually be a bit smaller. So let's change the width to, well, maybe even 50 pixels. This text element can be the size 12. Then there's quite some space between these elements. So let's change the gap from 32 to, let's say, 8. This already looks better. Then next to this text element, we drag in a icon. There it is. We change the icon to the verified icon. We set the type to fill, and then we change the color to this brand color right here. And then we set the height to 12 by 12. This looks about right. We duplicate this text element. We change the order really quick, and then this should say verified buyer. And let's make this even smaller, this text element. So let's make this 10 pixels. Select this text element and also make this 10 pixels. There we have it. Then underneath, we drag in another text element. So let's copy this text element and paste it within this row. Then this should say this text right here. It's size 16. Let's change that to 14. There we have it. Then for this entire row, we now delete the fill color. And there we have it. The first part of the 5 listicles is done. And what we're going to do right now before we duplicate these sections is to check out the responsiveness first, so we don't have to duplicate that type of work. So let's do that really quickly. Let's first take a look at the header on this device right here. This still looks good. This also still looks good. And on mobile, it starts to look a little bit weird. So let's make sure this width of the logo is a bit less, 150 pixels. Then we need to make sure the button is a bit less big. So let's change to 20 by 12. And the font can also be smaller. Let's change this to 12. And then the inside spacing is still set to 60. Let's change this to 20, and this already looks way better. Then we go back to the desktop viewport and we take a look at the next section, which is the hero section, which looks great on this device, also looks good on this device, and then on tablet it looks okay, but I'm gonna make a change. So what I want to do is I want to change the direction of this row. So let's change this from horizontal to vertical so they're placed underneath each other. Then there's some spacing on the right, as you can see right here. So let's delete that. There we have it. Let's make this image a bit less big. So let's change it to 350 pixels. And then we need to add some inside spacing to this row that contains the text, because this looks kind of weird. So let's add that, I would say around 40 pixels worth of inside spacing to the left and right. Then let's go to mobile. And this actually also looks pretty good. So let's go to the first listicle, and then we're done with making it responsive, and then we can duplicate these sections. So on desktop, it looks good. On laptop, it also looks good. And then on tablet, it starts to look a little bit weird. So let's also change the direction of this row to vertical. And as you can see, as soon as we do this, the image disappears. And the reason this image disappears, which is this row right here, is that it's set to fill, but there's nothing to fill right now. So we need to change this to a fixed height of, let's say, 350 pixels. Then I also want to change the order. So I want the image underneath and the text above. We do that by selecting the row that contains both the image and the row with all the text elements. And we click on the reversed icon right here, and the order of the rows is reversed. And the rest actually looks really good. Then we go to mobile, and this all still looks very nice. One thing we can do is actually change the amount of inside spacing on the left and right. So on the header, we set this to 20. So to create more consistency, we can do the same thing on this first region right here. Changes from 60 to 20. There we have it. Then the next thing is there's quite some space between the image and the other row on top, which looks kind of weird. So let's change the gap from 64 to, let's say, 32. Let's see what it looks like on tablet. Yeah, we can also change it right here, 64 to 32. This looks way better. And now that this is all nice and responsive, I want to do one more thing. So when we preview this build, the header is not moving along. And I do want this header to move along as we scroll down. And to do that, I'm going to change this position from relative to sticky. Then when we preview, it is not really doing what we want. And the reason for this is that this row is on top. We created it first, and all the rows we create later on will be sort of placed on top of this row. So to make sure it actually sticks and it lays on top of all the other layers, we need to right click on the layer and send it to the front. So it's in front of all the other layers that we are creating. Then we preview, and as you can see, it is now moving along across the entire page, and thus it's positioned sticky. So next up, we can duplicate this section right here, which will be the second reason, the third reason, the fourth reason, and the fifth reason. Then what's left to do is fill in the correct content. And there we have it. These sections have been duplicated and all the correct content is within. Let's quickly preview to see what this looks like. This looks amazing. Also on all the different devices, this all looks really, really, really good. There's one more thing that I like to do, and that is to create a bit less space between the different elements within this row. So right now the gap is set to 32. Let's change this to 16, and we actually have to do this across the different sections. So we also change this to 16. We scroll down a little bit, then we change this to 16. There we have it. Then also for this one, we change this to 16. Delete the minimum height as well, since it's a bit smaller right now. The same for this row above. There we go. And then for the last one, we change this to 16, the gap, and delete the minimum height as well. And there we have it. Next up is creating the logo section and then the final CTA. So to create the logo section, let's click on the plus icon, go to section, open the template library. Then under social proof, we can scroll down and let's add this section to our project. Then we create the right fill color, which is this branded color right here. We delete this text element. We change the inside spacing to 60 and the top and bottom to, let's say, 20 or 40. This looks about right. Then we make the logos a bit smaller. So right now the height is set to 40. Let's change it to 30. Then also for the other logo, 30, 30, and 30. And the last one. And then we change the distribute setting to this one right here, which is equal space between. And there we have it. Next up is creating the final CTA, which looks similar to this hero section. So let's duplicate this one. Then we zoom out a little bit and make sure we drag it to the bottom. There we go. And then we fill in the correct content, which is ready to say WFT. There we go. This can be deleted. We actually need a shop now button right here. So let's duplicate this one, add it to the row. And then we need to change this image to this image right here, the CTA. And then for this one, I do want some space on the left. So we select the inside spacing and add 60 to both the left and the right. And there we have it. Before we publish this page to our Shopify store, let's quickly preview to see if everything looks all right across the different devices. So it looks good on desktop because that's where we made it. This all looks really, really amazing. It looks good on the laptop viewport as well, as it does on the tablet viewport and then also on the mobile viewport. This all looks really, really great. There's one more thing we can do right here is change the size of the text. Let's scroll down a little bit more. There's quite some space between these individual elements, actually also on the tablet viewport, so we can change that. We scroll down even more and then we can add some inside spacing to the bottom. So we go to the tablet viewport and let's create a bit less inside spacing on the top and bottom of these listicle sections. So it's now set to 60. Let's change this actually to 20 on all the different sections. I think this makes it look way, way better. There we go. Then for the last one as well, number 5, this looks better. And then we can add some inside spacing or actually spacing around for this last section right here. So we can add some spacing around to the bottom. Let's say 40 pixels. This looks about right. Then on mobile, this all looks really, really good. And then I would say we're ready to publish this to our Shopify store. So let's go to layout. Then to this page, we can give this page a name under page settings. Let's call this Jones Road. Also the handle. And then we publish this to our Shopify store by clicking on publish. The page is now published, so let's go to our Shopify store. Here we are in the Shopify theme editor on our home page. Let's look for the Jones Road page. There it is. And then we hide the header to get the result we want to accomplish. So there we go. And this all looks amazing. Now let's go to the mobile viewport, and this also looks really, really good. And that's it for this video. So I hope you have a good understanding on how to build a page like this yourself. Thanks for following along and good luck.